Welcome to Small Biz Life, episode 136, How to Grow Your Business Without Working for Free. And, I wanted to do something on this topic because I think there are a couple different veins that people go in with this. First off, I think people are like, well, you have to work for free because you have to have a portfolio, you have to, have, testimonials. So you have to do some work for free. And then on the other side, I get a lot of people say, well, I can't give away information, because, then what am I going to teach people? Like, why would people hire me? So I think we're going to talk about both of those today. So kind of how can you grow your business? And then we'll talk a little bit about, what information you should give out.
Yeah, it's definitely, it feels really tough, especially if you're very new and running your own business, because you want to grow. And if you have no clients, maybe there's a little bit different argument, but once you start building up clients, you really have to be focused on growing revenue. So I think there's a fine line, and I can also see the fear of sharing everything that you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start about talking about how to grow your business, without working for free. So I think when I started my accounting firm, the thing that I did is I did lots of networking. And we've done entire episodes on networking, so you can go back and you can find those. But I think that there are two different ways you can network, right? You can network online, or you can network in person. And I think a lot of people who are doing things in the online space, especially if you're a service provider, they're almost like afraid to go into local networking. And I think that it's really important to do some local networking, no matter what type of business you are. Yeah. And I think the reason I think that is because I think a lot of people are intimidated by being in front of a camera. This is not something that comes natural to a lot of people, to have like a microphone in your face all the time. And so when you're networking, either small business groups, or maybe there's moms groups, if you've got like a mom product, whatever your product is, if you can find a group that you can interact with live, I think it brings a lot of the fear out, so that you can refine your message. And then when you go online, your message sounds better.
Yeah. I also think too, the misconception is there is some difference between online and offline businesses. And, where you focus a lot of your energies and the way you try and generate sales might make you think you're offline or online. But the simple fact is, in today's world, there is just business. And some businesses do more work online and some do more offline, but there is no difference anymore.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that, even if you're building websites, you're doing social media, I mean, local businesses need that, online businesses need that. It doesn't matter. I see the icon that Carla is with us today. Carla is the owner of La Bella Coppola. She makes custom bras. And, even that, when you kind of think about, well, that's kind of, is that more of an online business? Is that more of an offline business? And I think you could do both, right? I think especially if you're doing custom, sometimes it's a lot easier to get into a room with women and say, hey, we can measure you, we can do this, we can make it, we can get it to you. And then once you have all those testimonials built up, then you go bigger, right? Yeah. So I think that's a really good case where you can do both, and it's almost easier to build up the testimonials locally, right? And then get your business going from there.
I think most of us have a lot more experience, even if we're introverts, at building relationships in person. So, if you're struggling to build them online, you probably need to practice more offline and build up some skills to where you can actually start building the relationships in a broader context, online through video or audio or blogging or however you want to do it. But any way you look at it, you have to stop thinking of yourself as an online or offline business.
Right. Absolutely. I think you're both, no matter what. And if you're still trying to figure out, if you're struggling with social media, if you're struggling with live video, if you don't feel like you're making traction, one of the best things you can do, no matter what type of business you are, if you are selling to people, right? Whether it's business people, whether it's non-business people, check out your local chamber of commerce. I know we've got Carla here live watching. Carla could walk into a room full of, business owners at a chamber of commerce, and there's always going to be women in that room.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you talk about the fact you make custom bras, okay, women are going to go, oh, hi, yeah, me, I have a problem with that. Okay, yes, come. So, it's really interesting because I think a lot of times we don't think that a chamber would be good for our business. Unless, even if you're selling to kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are moms and dads in the room. So a chamber of commerce, first of all, it's a really good way to build local community. And second of all, your avatar is probably in that room somewhere.
Yeah. And the thing is, there are some places where you have a greater concentration of your avatar, and those are obviously good places to focus. But I know with the other podcast I do, World Builders Anvil, where it's a very niche or niche market, depending on if you're from Europe or the U.S. It's a very small market, but it's surprising. A lot of times when I'm doing events for small business, I almost always run into someone who's very, very excited when they hear, "Oh, wow, that's awesome," and they want to know more. And I can gain listeners for both shows. Even though obviously the majority of what I would be doing would be focused on the small business, and it would just come up. But even when I'm in rooms, I can, if I can find a fantasy world builder in any room I go into, you can find someone who's interested in your business.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's amazing how you can, like we went to a home show about a month ago, and it always comes up, the we're small business owners, and oh, what do you do? We have podcasts and we've got courses, and Jeff will say like, oh, I'm a fantasy world builder and I have a podcast called the World Builders Anvil. And people are like, oh my God, that sounds so interesting. It's funny because when we talk about it, usually if we're talking to people, they will be interested in one of the two podcasts. And so, it's kind of one of those things that you think that your niche is only online. You're never going to find the people that would like your stuff, and you totally will.
Yeah.
So I would totally encourage you to like check out your chamber of commerce and just kind of see like what type of businesses are there, and how you might be able to grow your business there. Yeah. So I think that's the first one, networking, huge.
Yeah.
The second one, and this is something that I think, I'm going to pick on Carla today. I think Carla's really good at this, sharing your knowledge.
Yes.
It's really hard to build a brand where you're selling clothing online. And I think Carla's doing a really good job talking about fit and what you're looking for, when you purchase a bra. And she does a really good job, even just talking about like the components and the different pieces. And, I love that because I know it can be really hard, right? And Sin Hendricks is on here. She's like, Carla's amazing at what she does. She has a great little following. And I think it's because she's educating people. And it's funny because when I talk to small business owners, they're like, well, I don't know how to share my knowledge, because I sell t-shirts. Well, you can talk about the design of the t-shirt, the material of the t-shirt. How do you come up with the ideas for the t-shirt? If you're doing like, funny t-shirts, just posting up the images are going to help you sell.
Yeah.
But I think you have to find a way when you're trying to grow your business is how do you share your knowledge with other people in order to get them to buy? Yeah. And, maybe if you're selling promotional products, then you're talking about marketing and how do you get those promotional products into people's hands?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, most definitely, and it's, it's always about considering the opportunities around you. And, part of sharing your knowledge and networking, they work together really well. But it's keeping your eyes open. Your eyes and ears are your strongest tool for these two things because you're talking to someone, you're hearing their concerns on what they're talking about. And, and it informs you sometimes even before you start, is there an opportunity here to bring up my business? Is there no opportunity here? And it's not only at your chamber, it's at your grocery store when that person decides that they want to talk to you for 20 minutes in line. Listen to people, talk to them, and feel them out to determine whether or not it's the appropriate time and place to share what you do. And also remember that they're a person too, and try and make it a conversation two ways. So be interested in them and what they do. And sometimes, synergies come together where you both can help each other.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, when you think about sharing your knowledge, it's not just about, doing video or posting on social, but sometimes it's about, going to, finding groups of people that you can speak to in your community, doing that networking that we talked about in person. It's funny because whenever I've done networking in the past and, I'm talking to a small business owner, I'm always trying to see how I can provide some value to them. And so, I'll ask a lot of, questions, how's your business going? Is there anything you're struggling with? And I'll try to see if I can give them some value. And just by doing that, when I was first building my business, that got me a ton of phone calls, like absolutely instantly. And so just sharing little nuggets of knowledge, and we all have that, right? We all have something, I call it your zone of genius. We all have this zone of genius. And I think a lot of times in our businesses, we forget to share that out, because even if we're selling a product, we still have the zone of genius that we can share with people to help us sell that product. And so totally make sure that you share that out, and it's a really easy way. It's funny. I'm playing a lot with, Instagram right now. And I'm still trying to kind of figure out like the kinds of things I should share. But the other day, and if you want like behind the scenes, like that's where all the behind the scenes at Small Biz Life gets posted. So I do a lot of personal stuff and, I'm sharing a lot about Eric and my workouts and just kind of daily life stuff. But I shared this picture of like, so there's this thing you can do with the Ziploc bag if you want it to stay open so you can fill it up, is if you take the zipper and you kind of fold it over, it will help the bag stay open. And so I posted this and people were like, that's genius. Oh my God. And, it's interesting because we have these little, like, I think we all have these nuggets of knowledge that we think are just like commonplace that people are like, that is brilliant, right? Because that is not their zone of genius and that might be your zone of genius. So I want you to think about that. Like, what is your zone of genius? How does that relate to your business? And I heard a great quote this morning. I'm listening to Brendan Burchard's audiobook, High Performance Habits. And they were talking about procrastination. And they said that typically when you procrastinate, it's not because, you don't respect deadlines or it's fear. A lot of times it's motivation. And you really have to look at what is my business and is it something that I'm passionate about, that I'm motivated to work on? And if it's not, I would encourage you to kind of look at your business and see how can you be more excited about it? Because when you're excited about it, you want to share that knowledge.
I think one trick that, can help hold you over, because sometimes, we start businesses because of pre-existing knowledge we have, an opportunity at the time, and it's not necessarily a passion that we have. But realize, this is where I get really important that, it's the connection of things, right? Sometimes we have tools that are utilitarian that are needed for us to get to our goal. So if our goal is to spend the rest of our time on the beach with our kids, we need money to do that. So, the motivation of using that shovel now to dig that money into the bank account is a great motivation to say, hey, I'm great at making money at doing this. This isn't what I love to do, but think of that time with my child and my spouse on the beach. Think of that time, when I can just take my family to go visit my mother or grandmother. Think about that and the power that a completely utilitarian thing gives you, that gives you the motivation to go into work day in and day out, every day when you're sick, when you're not sick, to work on it, even if it's just a little bit when you have that little virus going through your body.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting because like, the tax part of our business, I'm kind of transitioning that more to a consulting business. But it's interesting because as I'm going through tax season, I'm like, oh my God, if I have to do another tax return, I don't know what I'm going to do. Because I love the tax piece and I love the strategy piece, the forms piece, not so much. So But it's funny because like as the money is coming in and I'm like, okay, we can do this. We put a new roof on the house this tax season. This will allow me to spend more time with Eric this summer. And so when you think about those things, sometimes that's enough motivation to keep you moving in your business. So if you focus on the potential of what you can do and what this business does for your life, it's amazing what you can accomplish, and it'll really help motivate you better.
And your real job,
I love that a lot.
Yeah, your real job as a small business owner is to find those nuggets, those things that bring that passion to you, and utilize that energy to get through the mundane. Which, no matter if you love the job you created, guess what? Like, I love the job I created, but there are lots of elements that bore the crap out of me that need to get done. So I still have to use that kind of stuff, even though I love the mission of our company. I still need those to get through the littler things, the more boring things that just have to happen in any business.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, okay, so the first thing we talked about networking. We just talked about sharing your knowledge. And now the third thing, and I see this a lot with service providers. I want to do social media management. I want to help people build their platforms. I want to build websites. And I can't figure out how to build my business. Well, the best way that you can build your business is to build your business. Yeah. And so if you're a web designer, build beautiful websites. Like, even if some of them are just like kind of template sites that you put out there, buy a domain, kind of, make up and put up a website. If you do SEO, trick out your own website. If you do social media, build up your own social media following. I think it's really hard to say, I'm a social media manager, you should hire me, if you don't have a following online.
Yeah.
And so, for a lot of these types of businesses, just by building your own business, you're giving social proof. Now, one thing that I'd recommend too, if you're building your business, I think it's a lot easier to close deals locally than it is to close deals online, because people can meet you, they can get to know you. You can sit down, have coffee with them, close a deal. Sometimes easier to do that than to try to do it over a Skype call. And so, and if you think about kind of the path that I took with my business, right? So I started a local CPA firm working with people in town and neighboring towns. And now I have clients all over the country. And the way that I did that is starting locally. And then, it kind of spread out a little bit to like, Southern Connecticut and then Western Massachusetts. And then as I started meeting people online, and people, that were here locally would talk about me, especially if I'm posting on social and things like that, the network broadened, right? And then we started doing the podcast, and that helped to broaden the network. But my business started because of local businesses hiring me, building my business that way, and then scaling out from there. Yeah, and so, go ahead.
I was just think it's really important, because we see this a lot when people try and become, especially if they're trying to like leave a job to start their own business. People don't consider the need for a budget, so their financial house is not in order, and so they're trying to do it on nothing, and they can't afford any tools, and then they wonder why they struggle so much to build an online business. If you're going to have a business where your focus is where you have an online presence, you still need capital to get started. And you can do it with very little. That's the great thing and the power of doing it online. But you still, you have to have a plan, for how to make money early to either fund it, or to help, clean up your personal financial issues, so you can have an even larger budget for your family, so you can keep moving forward. So you can go, like for me, where I was working a traditional job a couple of years ago, to working full time for our business.
Yeah, absolutely. So, make sure that, whatever it is that you do, if you're teaching people how to get out of debt, you need to get out of debt. If you're teaching people how to build a business, then you need to do that first, because the best proof that you have is social proof, right? Being able to say, hey, this is my story. This is the hook that got me to where I am. And so I think that is probably the best way. If you make bras, you're wearing your own bras, you're strutting out your own bras, and people go, wow, you look great. You're like, well, it's my bra, right? So it's fun having Carla on here today. So just kind of think about that. Like, how can you build your business? How can you build up social proof? Even if it's on your own sites, your own social, your own SEO, you can do all those things.
Yeah.
So let's flip the conversation a little bit, and let's talk about how much information is too much information. Yeah. Because I think that's something that people really worry about, if they're service providers, they're afraid to like talk about what they do because it's like some secret, right? So, I don't want to tell people how I manage social media because then they're not going to hire me to do it for them. Mm-hmm. Or I can't talk about what I do because then people won't buy my course or they won't read my book. I love Michael Hyatt's approach to this because, he said, I give out everything for free. Mm-hmm. The problem is it's a piece in a podcast over here and a piece in a blog post over here. And if you want, the I guess, synthesized version, you buy my book or you buy my course. And I think that that's a really good approach to take because when you're sharing out your knowledge, right, you're building trust with people, you're building social proof with people, and then they are more likely to hire you. And I think especially those of you that are service providers, that you're doing things for people, typically, even if you tell people how to do things, if they don't want to do them themselves, they're going to go, wow, that person's really smart, I'm going to hire them. Yeah.
Or they're going to get started down the path and realize that you gave them the information on how to do it, but it doesn't specifically add to the exact context in which they're doing it. And so then it's still too hard. So, there's going to be that person who's going to struggle through and do it irregardless, but he's not going to pay you to do it anyway, or she,
right.
Type of person is not going to pay you.
Right. And let's say you're in the craft space, right? And I know that we've got some members of HQ that are in the craft space. Teresa is listening right now, and I know she's in the craft space. So, if you're in that space, what I would recommend that you do is if you've got some old patterns that you used to sell that maybe they're not selling as well anymore, and you've got new patterns coming out, or you've got new techniques coming out, maybe as an opt-in, give away one of your old patterns. Or maybe develop a pattern that's, that's kind of simple, that's like a beginner pattern, so that you can sell more advanced patterns. Mm-hmm. But, I think we've all got, especially like if you've been in business for a while, you've got some old material that maybe isn't as exciting as it used to be. Maybe you've kind of sold all that you're going to sell of that product, especially if it's a digital product. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's time to give some of that away now. I mean, I'm really impressed. Brendan Burchard released his latest book in September. It's called High Performance Habits, and I talked about it a couple minutes ago. You can actually listen to his audiobook for free. Mm-hmm. It is on iTunes, it's on Stitcher, it's on Google Play, it's everywhere you could listen to podcasts. He put his entire audiobook up as a podcast, and you can get it for free. If you go to iTunes, search High Performance Habits, it's up there. I think that that's amazing because if you think about the book is only about 6 months old, but he's using this as a strategy. He's saying, okay, I've sold the books I'm going to sell, right? The people that are really excited about that, there's kind of a diminishing return on this book. But if I can get people in listening to this book now for free, I can sell them courses. I can sell them tickets to my live events. It can now start generating revenue for me again. And so I want you to kind of think about, like, what do you have in your arsenal? What old information you have? Maybe there's a blog post that you could put together as like an ebook and give that away for free. We were actually talking this morning. We have this idea that's starting to germinate. We bought some more domains because that's what we do. Because that's what we do. And what we're going to start doing though is like we bought a domain and we're going to look at some of the old content from Payment Free Life and see how we can repurpose some of that content into a new website that'll actually tie in with some other related websites. So, go back and look at your old content and see how can you repurpose that stuff. Can you maybe take some of it, create a worksheet, create a new opt-in to get some new people into your cycle? Can you package some of that information together and maybe create a course from it? Because just because it's out there, if it's all over the place, one of the most valuable resources that people have is time. And so they are looking for ways to save time. And so how can you take the information that you have, put it into a concise format, maybe give it some direction, and then release it as a paid product?
Yeah. Or another thought too is to say you have that old blog, like, we have Payment Free Life sitting out there. It does nothing for us. Maybe we don't want to go the trouble of repurposing on other sites. Maybe one of the approaches we could take with that is, let's, if we have really well written articles, we get good SEO and traffic, try and take the oldest post, delist it, and then relist it, so it always appears like you're essentially circulating through your content. And then the traffic that comes in, you try and put opt-ins on that page to drive that traffic to your business, to the latest project that you're working on.
Right. And so I love this. So Teresa chimed in. She teaches people how to spin yarn. Okay. I know her from my knitting days. And she says, that's why I tell people, if you come to a place where I'm going to be anyways, I will teach you how to spin for free. Right. And so she's going to be there, right? She's going to have her stuff. And so, she's hanging out. She'll teach you how to spin for free. First of all, that's a great way to share your knowledge. It's total social proof because you're in a group of people who are around you. And it's funny, like, one of my friends, my friend Jenny, she's a spinner, and she'll spin like all over town. Like she'll just like go to the green and she'll spin. She'll go to like different fairs and she'll spin. And people are like, oh my God, that's so cool. I want to learn how to do that. And just by demoing, by sharing her knowledge, you can get students that way. So, it's interesting because we think in this box, like, okay, we've got to do videos and be on YouTube, and we're kind of forgetting, like, oh yeah, there are people in our neighborhood, there are people in my town who might need my help.
Yeah. And the great thing is,
don't forget about those people.
Yeah. The great thing is too, is as you do this, it's like a lot of times when you disengage a little bit from the online and spend a little more time interacting with human beings in your community, some of the anxieties you build up by having the same types of negative information put in front of you through social media all day start to slip away a little bit, because you're interacting with humans and you're remembering that there's a whole bunch of good things that are going on all of the time. And that kind of stuff can help feed you energy, help keep your anxiety down. I know sometimes I just get done looking at news or social media because all you see are all these negative articles. And I find the greatest way to get out of that is to spend time in the real world. Even if I don't talk to people, maybe I'm people watching, maybe I'm just grocery shopping, but sometimes I just gotta disconnect from watching those feeds tell me what to think.
And it's funny because that's part of the reason that we record the podcast on Facebook now, because I get so much more charge out of doing a podcast episode when I've got people like Carla and Sin and Teresa who are engaging with us and commenting, as we are doing the show, than just Jeff and I recording the show together. And so, I would encourage you to look at your processes and see how can you get more excited about what you do. Maybe it's, instead of recording your videos and then putting them up online, maybe you do them through a Facebook Live or a YouTube Live. Maybe, if you feel like you're alone in your space and you're tired of just being in front of a computer screen, go out into the world and meet people and share your business that way. It will help you get recharged. Even if you're an introvert, you're not a people person. I think even introverts, they need a little bit of human interaction. So I'd recommend get out there, talk about your business, share it with the world, and see what impact that has, because I think it'll be huge. So thank you so much for joining us. If you're watching us live on Facebook, this episode will come out on Monday. You can check out the show notes. We'll post it up when it goes live next Monday on page. but you can go to smallbiz.life/136 to check out the show notes for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next week.